Folks, so obviously we didn't have the show last week. And for the whole week, I didn't say anything. I wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't on the 4th and 16 Facebook page. I wasn't talking about anything on the Instagram page. I was dead silent, right? Because I was hearing a lot of talk, and we had heard after everybody's talking about how disappointing Clemson played against Virginia in an 18-point win that could have been worse. That Clemson, I don't know, man. Miami's resurgent. They're on top of the game now. They're going to come into Death Valley and give Clemson a real struggle. And I had some people send me videos and some nice YouTubers, and everybody's, look, that's fine. That's great. Send me those videos. That's great. You're supposed to have confidence in your team. If a team is going to come into Clemson, especially Death Valley, and they don't feel confident, then you're definitely going to get ran out of the stadium. So, yeah, you want to have confidence. If you're a fan base, you're excited, all this stuff, you want to talk junk. That's what you want to do, right? The problem with that is that I tweeted this. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, I tweeted in the first drive. In fact, you knew this. We were talking the whole time about this. I tweeted, you're not playing UAB, Florida State, or Louisville. And everybody was like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about anything until the end of the third quarter. These games can change. I don't know. Miami's a really good team. Here's the thing. That kind of thought existed years ago. Like, if you were to transport us back to 2012 or 2013, I would feel that way. But now, I don't feel that way. And I knew it from the first drive. There was just nothing about this game. And I'm not even going to talk about X's and O's so much in this, because you've heard there's 50,000 other Clemson sports people and ESPN and everybody talking about it already. We're not even going to talk X's and O's. We're going to talk about what the culture is at Clemson. Faxon just showed me a clip earlier that made me, I cracked up. Fans, if you can, go to check out the Skycam audio of Matt Bockhorst during the game. That tells you everything about what the game was like, the bad blood between Clemson and Miami, and then afterwards, all the talk afterwards. So, again, I was supremely confident that Clemson was going to win this game by a lot, and they did. Could have scored way more, all right? If not for a few boneheaded decisions from Dabo, I love my coach to death.
Yeah. There was some questionable decision making, and everyone's been loving to bring up the kicking from 61 yards at the end of the half, block taken back for a score. That doesn't bother me as much as coming out in the second half. You've already had 2 kicks blocked in the game. You're up 18, and it's 4th and 4, and we're trotting out the field goal unit.
And Miami has not stopped you.
Yeah,
on third down at all.
And I turned to the people I was sitting with, because I was at the game, and I'm like, they're going to block it again. And we go out there, and BT gets it, and I don't know if Miami, I'm guessing that they studied field goal blocking as the majority of their game plan.
Hey, turnover chain guy.
Because I can tell you right now that was mildly concerning going forward with the frequency we were getting kicks blocked, but I do want to say that just coming off the foot, I think all 3 of those BT kicks would have gone in if they were not blocked.
Yeah. I am supremely confident that BT would have made that field goal from 61 yards. I've seen the kid do it. I know that he can do it. Considering the weather, Dabo was chasing points. He wanted to really beat down Miami. And again, this goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning. I don't know if there is a blatant bad blood between the coaching staffs and the organization, because by all accounts, they look like they're friends. You see the halftime, the middle of the field before the game, they're hugging. Him and Ed Reed. Dabo and Ed Reed know each other somehow. I don't know. But they're hanging out, talking, and all this good stuff. And then the game turns on, and it's just a massacre. You got to think about this. 138-20 in the last 3 years. I went down to Miami for the 58-0 game.
Really?
Before the game, I knew this was going to be a blowout, because they were down there running their mouths, jabbering their jaws. The fans were running their mouth, talking junk to everybody, right? You talk a lot for a school that has to travel to their stadium. They literally have to get on a bus to go to the stadium that they share with one of the worst NFL teams in the league.
Yeah.
You talk a whole lot. And I get it. Look, you just blew out Florida State. Okay, we know Florida State is the dumpster of the ACC. Okay? You just blew out Louisville, who has been supremely disappointing this season. I think no one saw them being this bad this early. But then, truth be told, I think UAB might have been the best team that they played this year. And hats off to Bill Clark. But that's UAB. So after the UAB game, you didn't hear anything from Miami fans. Nobody in Miami was saying, oh, we're going to beat Clemson down. We're going to do all this. Nobody was making YouTube videos. It was literally after you beat Louisville and you beat Florida State that you started getting super cocky. Well, now you have a reality check. And here's the thing. Manny Diaz actually says that there is only a difference of about just inches between Clemson and Miami when it comes to talent level and just where the programs are. Do you believe that? Do you fans, people out there listening, do you believe that Miami is close to Clemson?
And I'll tell you that no. If you just look at the general recruiting and look at the caliber and the stars,
It's not even close.
There's no these are two programs on a completely different playing field. And going into the game against Miami, I was feeling confident. The blocked field goal really kind of scared me to an extent because I thought, this is where De'Eric's going to come out at half and have a 50-yard run again like he did in that one play. But Clemson ended up being fine, and it's just when are these teams in the ACC going to learn to stop comparing themselves to Clemson, because you will never touch Clemson.
No, and okay, so that's part of the whole situation. Now, I get it. You want to create intrigue. Game day is going to be there. This is the first time you're going to have a number 7 Miami that's really, really hyped going into Death Valley. You remember they're not supposed to play Clemson this year. They found out about this when everything changed because of COVID and all this schedules and everything. I get it. And it's one of those things where if you look at it from an objective standpoint, and this is why I try to tell people after the game. People were tweeting me saying, "You're right, Ellis. Miami sucks. Pause. Pump the brakes. Timeout." I don't think Miami sucks. I think they're a good team. They're just not elite. And they found that out this weekend. They found it out because they went up against a team that is elite. Again, you're not proving anything to me by putting up 50-plus points on Florida State. North Carolina is going to do that this weekend. Notre Dame almost did it this past weekend. You don't prove anything to me by putting 50 points on Florida State. You don't prove anything to me by putting up 40-something points on Louisville, a team that's reeling right now. I don't know what's going on with that program, but it is what it is. And you really didn't prove anything to me beginning of the season when the only thing that you could do was run the ball against UAB. You couldn't do anything else. But you know what's hilarious? Let's look at these things right here. I've got the stats pulled up here, folks. Rushing attempts. They had 3.6 yards per rush. That was boosted by De'Eric King's long run. Before that, it was like 0.6. Look, rushing attempts 25 times for 89 yards. You couldn't do anything. Passing, they didn't know how to get open. Clemson's DBs put on a clinic.
And I'll tell you,
they put on a clinic.
Darion Kendrick is...
He is legit.
For me, he's climbing rankings, not just as DBs on Clemson, because he's by far and away the best DB on Clemson.
Yeah.
I'm saying DBs in the country.
Yes.
I mean, he's come out this year with a vengeance after missing that first game.
He didn't even play the first game, yeah.
He didn't even play the first game, and in every single game, if you throw at Darion Kendrick, it is a mistake. These number 1 wide receivers have been getting put on Kendrick Island. They can't do anything.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing hope. I'm very, very hopeful because we're seeing the rotation of players that can actually play. So you also had a good rotation of having Lee Anthony Williams get in. Sheridan Jones got himself an interception. Andrew Booth has been what we wanted him to be after the Wake Forest game. I think it was just one of those things that he just needed to get baptized. That was his first game as a starter. But you saw these guys start rotating in. Mario Goodrich is back playing again. I feel confident with this. There was no receiver for Miami that could find himself open. And that hurt De'Aaron King. Now, look, I've said this over and over. De'Aaron King's actually a really good quarterback. He is. Well, you can go back in history and see. But when he did not, and this is something that I try to tell people all the time, because everybody was so confident in that Miami was going to just do all this stuff against Clemson, because you watch what happened against Virginia. You can't do that. There's a couple of reasons why I didn't pay any attention to Virginia game. The outcome of Virginia game defensively, the way it looked. One, you're playing against Brennan Armstrong, a quarterback you have no film on. Bryce Perkins was the offense when he was there. We didn't see him. Right?
And Clemson shut Perkins down.
Shut him down. We didn't shut the offense down. We shut Perkins down. He didn't do some of the things that he did before, but their points didn't match up with the yardage. They actually put some yards on Clemson, but nobody cares about that. What's important is that you have to remember that you had no film on Brennan Armstrong, a quarterback that's left-handed, nobody's seen. You played in the first game against Duke, but does that tell you anything? It's Duke. And then also a defense that's extremely aggressive. You don't know what they're going to throw at you. So it's one of those things where I think Clemson just got in a situation where they didn't have much film. It's hard to do that. That's what happens when you don't have film. You don't have film study. Dabo has a whole crew of guys that just watches film to give to assistants to figure out. So when you're looking at De'Aaron King in Miami, you're getting to look at the first 3 games that they played against UAB, Louisville, and Florida State. You're getting to watch all of his Houston career. You're getting to watch Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator, because you've played against him a couple of times when he was an offensive coordinator at Auburn. So you are familiar with these things. And Dabo and Brent came up with the perfect hats off to both Tony Elliott and Brent Venables. We'll get into that a little bit, but hats off to those guys, because it's one of those deals where Brent Venables did what everybody expected him to not do. He came out in a 3-man front. They had no idea what to do with that.
We came out in a 3-man front, and I'll tell you, Brent Venables sent the house on every third down. He very clearly did not.
Dalen Spector was blitzing every play.
And he very clearly did not see a ton of things on film that said, this De'Aaron guy is going to beat us through the air.
Right.
Because, I mean, when we were talking about De'Aaron King, I personally think he's a great player, and he's great as a runner. He's a good, not great thrower, and really, he's a 1 to 2 read quarterback. And if that first read is taken away in man coverage and you're sending 7, he's not going to be able to escape the pocket because of the pressure you're sending. His primary read is taken away, and he's going to take a sack. And we saw that. How many sacks did Clemson have? It had to have been 5 or 6.
I think it was closer to 4.
4.
I don't know that they got.
I know
5.
that Spector had 2. Brissy and Murphy combined for 1. Tyler Davis.
Actually, that's a good question. We got that over on Twitter. Question asking, was Virginia's offensive line better than Clemson, better than Miami's, and did
100%.
Tyler Davis make that big of a difference? Both things are true.
Both things can be true because Virginia's O-line is one of the top in the ACC. They are very good.
Yes.
I could even make the argument
The
that,
top in the
they are
country.
better than Clemson's.
In the country. They have much more. You got to think. You're having 4 new starters for offensive line at Clemson.
Yeah.
Virginia brought all of their guys back.
Yeah, they had 5 returning starters.
So it's one of those deals where I think Virginia's offensive line is better, but also think that Tyler Davis came in, really gave them no chance.
And he got limited snaps too. He hasn't even been unleashed. If you think Tyler Davis, if you think he can do that much in limited snaps, when he gets fully unleashed, and I'm guessing it won't be this weekend against Georgia Tech, because that doesn't seem a game where you're going to kind of want to rush a guy back in. But in a couple weeks, you're going to see Tyler Davis playing a lot more and being that DT1.
Yeah, and scary news for a lot of people is Xavier Thomas at some point is going to be back. So you have him with Brzee, you have him with Murphy, Maskell's playing better. At some point, maybe we'll get Foster back. This D-line, now that the linebackers are playing aggressive like we want to see, we saw that Dalen Spector is a specimen. We know that Jamie Skalski is a monster. And Mike Jones Jr. is starting to be, he's never going to be Isaiah Simmons, but he's starting to be that really good extra guy. And you can also use him in coverage too. The secondary playing as well, there was nothing for Miami to do. With all that said, again, you have to understand that there is still a gap in the ACC. There is still a gap in the ACC. Nothing I watched from this past weekend. North Carolina scoring all those points. That's great. You also had Virginia Tech with 15 players out score a lot of points on you. Notre Dame, sure, you put up a lot of points on Florida State. I feel the same thing. We had the same conversation about Miami. I'm not impressed by that. And for all intents and purposes, Florida State was up on Notre Dame.
And if I have to be completely honest, I think North Carolina #1 is better than Notre Dame.
I do.
And number 2, I think that Clemson would put up 40+ points on either of these teams.
At this point, yes.
And
everything I'm seeing, yes.
And I don't see Notre Dame or North Carolina, especially not Notre Dame with Ian Book, but even North Carolina with Howell and all the weapons he has, I don't see these teams being able to match Clemson.
No.
And I don't see this. Is North Carolina really in a potential ACC title game scenario? Is North Carolina going to put up 49 points on Clemson's defense to win?
I don't think so.
The answer to that question is no.
And here's the thing, even in Clemson's terrible years, think about how many times somebody's put up 40-something points on Clemson.
It's literally just West Virginia.
We never talk about that game. We saw Florida State do it too. We're done with those. But you saw Pittsburgh do it. You saw Alabama do it in the first national championship game. I get that, right? But it's Alabama, and they won the game. I don't know anybody that's put up more than 45 points on Clemson on a consistent basis. So it's not happening. I don't see that happening. Clemson's not the shootout team. You're not going to see Clemson in a lot of shootouts going forward, especially not with Brent Venables there. But I'm just saying, again, Manny Diaz's comments about Miami, and I'm not ragging on Miami so much. I'm going to let you guys have that loss. I'm going to make sure you got that loss. But at the same time, I'm not going to rag them like they're not a good team. I still think Miami's a really good team. They're just not elite, and they had a extreme reality check about that game this past weekend. But then you also have I'm kind of torn with this. All right, so you have Manny Diaz saying that there are only inches difference between Clemson and Miami. On one hand, it's like, dude, do you see how bad you got beat? You know how worse it could have been. I'm saying if Clemson makes all 3 of those field goals, right? You add that let's say Frank Ladson catches the ball.
And also people forget Clemson was on the 1.
And they're on the 1 at the end of the game.
Yeah.
They could have easily scored 60 plus.
Oh yeah.
But all of that aside, it's like, dude, think about what's happening. But at the same time, you want your team to feel that way, especially going into the game this weekend, going up against Pittsburgh. You don't want your team sulking. This is what happens to a lot of teams after they play Clemson. They get up really excited. They're super stoked to play Clemson. They actually play Clemson really well. We saw it with North Carolina. We see it with NC State every single year. They get beat up by Clemson, and then the next game they just go and drop it because they put everything into it, and then they get that reality check, and it's over. For Manny Diaz, it's kind of important for him to say, look, there's not that much difference. We're an elite team, because you want your team to still say, we just got beat, but, we'll work it out, because you want to have a chance to rematch Clemson.
Yeah.
Do we think that's going to happen?
No.
I don't.
I don't see Miami competing.
Nothing I saw in that game shows me. I mean, maybe the fact that you're playing this team again, they'll have a couple more weeks to have film. Mm-hmm. Manny Diaz is a defensive guy.
It wouldn't be close.
I still don't think it. I don't know. They have to play Notre Dame and North Carolina. So I don't see them at best splitting that.
Yeah.
So you're going to have 2 losses. You're not going to play Clemson. That was your chance to do it this year.